All right, it's episode 24 of the PoddyC. The recording button has been confirmed to be clicked this week.
I was the week aura. I told him.
Yep, thank you, Dorky. That's something. I expect the next few episodes will be I'll be hyper vigilant to that, and then start getting complacent again. And I expect the same incident might happen in the next couple hundred episodes or something. I don't know. Keep everybody on their toes. This week we don't have too much. We have a bunch of exciting and novel stuff, and you guys can't click off this podcast. So there's a new alpha build. It has the last zone, the last 2 dungeons. Yeah, I've only done 6 of the dungeons. I haven't done the 2 from 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago yet. So I've only done 6 of the 8 dungeons. Max, you've done them all though, right?
I have done all. Is it 8 now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Before we get into the dungeons, I kind of want to ask. So Dorky, right before we started recording, said how early he got up today, and he said noon, and it made me think: is that Pacific time or Eastern time? There needs to be This is my cook. There needs to be a universal gamer time zone. Because if you think about it, doesn't matter what time you wake up and where, because a lot of gamers, you just build your schedule around what your friends are doing, and that's if your friends stop doing keys in your Mythic Plus, or you go to bed at 3 a.m. Eastern time, but it's midnight Pacific, there needs to be a universal time, because it's you don't build it. I remember when I lived on the East Coast, I never saw daylight because I was just up so late. But at Pacific time, you're just, it's shifted 3 hours early. So that's my only thing. There needs to be a universal gamer time that gamers use instead of the random time zones.
Dude, one thing I've noticed is that NA gamers play much later. I don't know why. Maybe it's because people nobody plays before 5 to 6 p.m. my time, which is Eastern. Whereas whenever I watch any EU teams or players, they all play well in the day. It's
Really?
actually insane. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
It's impossible to get a group going before 5 p.m.
Well, they also when we recruit Europeans, they're almost always super degen, and they're up at our time anyway. So I just assumed all EU people are like that. I think it's streamers, because the EU prime stream time is it's actually when the most viewers watch WoW by far, which is not surprising because there's a huge EU fan base. But dude, Reptar is popping off right now. I remember looking at a Twitch metric or a Twitch graph, and it was they did this a couple years ago. It was here's when you should stream if you want to grow your audience. Here's a time you can stream, and it's the hours it listed that were super hyped for WoW were exactly when we go to bed. It's midnight Pacific time it's just entirely EU. So I think that's maybe why Dorky is the streamers I think do that. But or do you think it's the other way around? Do you think that's naturally when they want to play?
I think there are a lot of people who aren't streamers and still do that, because if you look at JB, for example, he's playing with all these dudes who are just vibing on NA or EU. So I don't think it's just streamers, because on NA I straight up cannot find anyone to play before 5 p.m. A streamer or not. Everyone just wakes up super late. You kind of take it for granted that if you're trying to do anything organized, it's gonna happen midnight or later, which is why a lot of times people are how the hell is your sleep schedule so degenerate, or you're just a degen gamer? And I'm yeah, but it's kind of the product of my environment, I can only choose when to play.
I wonder if that's I wonder what caused that, if that's actually true, where European because I'm assuming they're just as degen as us. So wouldn't they also be staying up all night and waking up super late and gaming just like that? But I wonder if it's sorry, dogs are playing. I wonder if it's when streams are live, so that's because second monitor content. I wonder how it became different like that. Super interesting. Oh, also one more note on the sleep thing. It's not tomorrow until you go to bed. I know people say that all the time.
That's
when
true.
if you stream super late until 3 a.m. or something, you'll be all right, I'll stream tomorrow. And then the chat, some goody two shoes in the chat will be do you mean today? It's just shut up.
So you said Tuesday, but it's already Tuesday, actually.
Yeah, dude, get out of here. It is not tomorrow until you wake up. Anyways, that's my entire tangent for sleep and time zones. But
That's true.
Mm-hmm. Alpha then. What did you want to talk about? Dungeons?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about sleep as well. That's good. Sleep schedules. Sleep is a topic that may be on a lot of our minds, as well as a little behind the scenes info here. We're recording, it's now just crested 1 a.m. Pacific as we're recording this, which means 4 a.m.
4
dorky
a.m.
time.
Yeah, that's peak time.
Yeah, peak gamer hours, which this actually used to be when I would stream back in when I was like starting to grow my stream. This is like prime. If you're a streamer, by the way, and you're looking for a time slot, this is it, right? Like 1 a.m. Pacific to 4 a.m. Pacific. There's not as many viewers as there are, but the European streamers aren't up yet. They're not going yet, so you can get all the viewers. That's
Is that
Yeah,
actually
they love when I
is
stream
that
at this
actually
time.
true? Is that like a good time to stream like right now?
it
Yeah, it's more
felt good for
competitive
me.
though. That's the other problem. Cause,
Okay,
like,
who's
you,
live right now?
Is-
you
is it
turn on
really
your stream and then
competitive?
there's like
Because you streamers
Maras and
aren't-
like fucking Gingy on.
No,
Yeah,
none of them
and,
are
like,
up yet.
Megura's on.
Nobody's up yet. So like if you
Yeah, not
started
quite
your
up yet.
stream,
Let's check the section.
if you started your stream like 4 hours ago, you'd catch hosts from all the NA people going to bed, right? And there's still a couple NA late night DGen people going, right? But I would stream, dude. I would stream back when I was doing like BFA key pushing. I would stream starting a couple hours ago, and I would go until like 6 a.m. or something, and you just accumulate these hosts, and then you're just the only stream that's like live at at 4 a.m. at 5 a.m. It's good tech. So yeah, right
Dude,
now.
you know what I want to talk about?
Good.
How the hell did they get fired up to play this much?
He's doing
That's a
TGP, right?
great question. How much is he playing?
He's been playing a lot. He's been even buying BOEs on live in season 4. That like I saw him doing that on stream. I blew my mind. It blew my mind. I lost it. I could not because there's been times where I've tried messaging Fired Up 10 times in a row, and he would be like asleep, and he'd finally wake up at like 6 p.m. And you'd probably be like, oh, I can't do it. I'm playing like Legion TD or some shit. And somehow they just got him to be doing keys nonstop.
He's got a TGP team, right? So he's
Yeah.
Well, he
He's
also
committed.
probably just wants to game. Like I mean, he looking at his stream times. Maybe is he playing off stream because he's
Yeah,
only
he's been playing
streamed-
off stream. That's how serious he is.
Oh, okay. Because he only streamed 4 hours today, 4 hours yesterday. Like they're pretty easy stream. I mean, maybe his team cares about the TGP and he's just playing more because of that. But also, like when you do the race, you get used to just like I don't know, like every couple months you're just like a WoW player, and then you're not for like 3 or 4 months. That's what we do. So like even though there's no raid this season, maybe he just got the itch to like play WoW. I'm sure he wouldn't have signed up otherwise. People try to get him to play on these teams all the time, and he usually doesn't because there's a race. But like maybe this is like replacing the race for him this patch. Kind of makes sense.
That'd be nice, dude. NA has lost passion. There's no passion here.
What do you mean there's,
JPC
In,
back.
in keys,
Just in general, like in the high level scene, JPC was like the beacon of light. He was the most passionate player I knew.
oh his
And
passion.
now I do not know a single passionate player left. Like I want a game, but then like I look at my teammates, they're all doing their own shit. Like fucking Goop's just playing Lost Ark. He's probably gonna do a raid, and like people are playing with their girlfriends or doing weird shit, playing kata. I don't know. Nobody wants to do anything, and we need some passion back in NA.
Dude, this is so random, but I remember hearing about this before I got into like World First rating. Did World First guilds used to ban girlfriends? I think that's a thing. Like I like this.
So-
Okay, I don't know.
there's a Kungan like quote or clip of him going off about like girls in guilds as like distractions and distracting the raiders. And then there was something also about like there's been some quotes I think taken out of context from some Echo people about like banning girlfriends on site during their or not banning girlfriends on site.
I
but,
kind of remember this actually. This
there was
not too
there
long
was
ago.
there was some tweet about people like getting girlfriends and losing passion, which is like that's a normal thing that happens, right? Like your life, you go from being a 20-year-old race to world first raider to being like a 30-year-old adult or something that wants to don't want to play race to world first or whatever all the time. But some people there was some Twitter thread or something with that being taken as like an anti-girl thing.
Yeah, this was
maybe,
like end of
yeah.
Shadowlands.
Yeah, I
Like,
remember that
Well,
tweet
I
change
mean,
being
well,
pretty
I mean, it
wild.
is. So, like, obviously, it's something you never ban. Like, you would never try to micromanage anyone's relationship. But like, I have seen it happen in guilds a lot, and it's not even with a girl in the guild. It's usually this is my interpretation of it, and no one's really doing anything wrong. It just happens in people's lives. A lot of people who play WoW at a really high level this is maybe not breaking a lot of news, did not have a lot of social experiences in high school. They probably spent most of that time playing WoW just all the time, and that's why they're this good, right? So what they'll do is they'll end up getting a girlfriend in their 20s, and like what most people do, I did this. I think a lot of people can relate to this. Like you get your girlfriend or whoever, your partner, your first relationship, and you just like don't know any better, so you just throw everything at the relationship, and you like
Yup.
you guys have probably
Yeah,
seen
I know
this
exactly
happen.
what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
like
Yeah.
you abandon all your friends, just everything becomes about them, and then it obviously like miserably fails because that's not healthy at all. But like that, you don't know any better, and you do that, and then you learn from it, and then whatever, right? So like what you see is you see a lot of people do this that you raid with, and they're like, oh, they got a girlfriend. You're like, oh, that's gonna be tough for the next couple months. There's nothing. It's no one's fault. It's just like sometimes as a person, you just need to go through that.
I know
And
it's funny you bring this up because like this has I literally just got done talking about this like a couple hours ago with some
oh,
people. I'm not gonna name names. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just saying that like there's stuff happening and it is exactly this situation right now.
well, you didn't even have
This
to
might be the
name
single
names.
most
This
like
just
high
happened.
school 30 seconds that I've just had experienced in the last 10
Yeah.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like, but it's real. Like, the thing is it is a high
it's
school
real.
thing,
Yeah.
but because of how gaming affects your social interactions, a lot of people go through this thing you normally go through high school as adults, and
Yeah.
that's what you see. And you had to say like you don't have to name any names. You don't have to, guys. I can tell you this has happened to me. Like this has happened to like I'm sure a lot of people. You know, you just have to be really bad at relationships until you're good at them. And one of the main mistakes people make is they like get their first girlfriend and they're like, this is it, and they just go like 100% into it, and then it's rough. The best way to say it is it's rough for everyone else to look at real bad because they know what's happening and you know you can't tell them anything, right? They're totally delusional.
Especially
They
the
just,
bros.
yeah, yeah. You just have to let them go through it and figure it out on their own. It's part of life. But yeah, it has. So maybe just that's what they were talking about with those anecdotes. Was they? I mean, if you see that happen to someone in your guild, someone could make like a joke off cuff and be like, "Dude, we should totally ban girlfriends." But I also think what was happening too with Echo is like someone brought their girlfriend to the event, and then next, I remember there was like an event where there was just like a lot of girlfriends there, and I could definitely see that being a pretty big distraction, right? And it's not that it's not okay to do that. It's just in numbers. Like for example, if 3 people bought their girlfriends, maybe cool. But if like let's just say the most extreme example, where like there are 25 girlfriends on
God
site,
damn,
like
they all have these girlfriends. There's no shot.
yeah,
I'm telling
wow,
you, all these
dude, Race
fucking
World
nerds have
first raiders
girlfriends.
have their pick of the litter, man. It's just
That's
crazy how
true.
many
Yeah,
women you get.
that's part of it too, because like like they're not used to having that attention whenever they're like just a
I'm totally
nerdy
kidding.
ass teenage kid, and then like now that they have like big Ray.io, big clouds, big streamers, they just like they're reeling it in, man, and they're not used to this
They're not
attention.
though. Like they're just not. Like that's just
Nah,
not
nah,
true.
this is now, for those of you guys who are listening and you don't know this, big streamers, yeah, they get it all, man.
Yeah, your Raider IO score like just directly scales with your ability to.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Hell yeah. All right, cool. Man, I bet you weren't expecting this on the podcast today. But yeah, yeah, we've all seen people go through that, I'm sure. Sure, whoever. I don't
Yeah.
even know who you're talking about. Maybe it's
Yeah, don't worry about it. I'm
Oh,
not
of
gonna
course,
name names.
yeah.
Yeah, we were
Um,
literally just talking about this like an hour ago. It's kind of funny that we brought this up.
yep.
Yeah, so
And
Alpha
then
Dungeons.
also that kind of translates to into like relationships. Have you guys ever
Oh, yeah,
had
yeah.
relationships in your guild and then how that goes? Like if not like necessarily as it has or gone bad. That's actually happened a decent bit in our guild actually. But it's always been chill, like pretty good. But I know I've heard the horror stories of like the husband and wife GM.
Oh,
And
guild drama. Yeah, we're doing that.
wait, you're doing that right now?
No. We're doing the guild drama thing. Weren't we supposed to announce it or some shit? Frank said
Yeah,
something
it's like
about that.
yeah, it's Patreon content. We're gonna.
Oh yeah,
I think we're filming that in a couple days. Yeah, we're doing some like guild drama thing, but not even guild drama. Just like that's another thing that like back in the day, I think maybe Raced World first teams might have been like don't date in guild, but that definitely didn't happen. Like that has been happening as a tale as old as time. Probably everyone, because you're just spending so much time with people, right? It's just like dating at work. People ban it, but then. I mean, you're just obviously going to connect more with people who have shared hobby and passions, and you spend all a bunch of time with them, right?
Actually,
Yeah.
what do you guys think about that? Like, how like certain guilds they ban recruiting girls, not because like they're
So
sexist or like they hate.
They
female, whatever. But it's just like, like
IMO, that
sometimes
is sexist if you're doing that shit still like that.
it 100% is. But, like, the reason
that was
it's
like the
not,
Kungan quote back in the day, which like basically
Oh,
just
okay,
put the
okay.
blame on the girls for like
Yeah, but it's not
creating
about
weird social
blaming them. It's about blaming the guys for being like so fucking horny if they can't. Do
Exactly.
anything
Yeah,
about it.
exactly.
They
Like,
can't help themselves.
if you can't get your raiders to, control themselves and be normal, then that's the problem. Like, be a better leader. I
I've
don't
seen
know.
this so much, man, dude. It's so weird. Like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
There's like circles. Like, I don't know if you've ever been in those guilds where there's like circles and like there's clearly like 4 guys that are like kind of into this one girl, and it's fucking weird.
It happened in the like original incarnation of Limit, like very, very beginning. There was a girl in an alt guild, and then like multiple, I think it was like 3 people in the guild who have also raided with each other for like 5 years, and one of them were like two of them were like boys for like 8 years, like a long time.
And then the girl stepped in.
Yeah, well, the girl didn't really do anything. She just
Almost
existed.
never
Yeah.
do.
Correct,
Existing is generally the crime committed here, by the way. Which is
She said a
wild.
word.
You know how earlier we were talking about how some guys just people too, by the way, we just happen to be around a lot of sweaty gamer dudes. That's why we keep saying that. But like a lot of people just have to go through that to understand it. Like that's what both of them had to go through at the same time, and they both just had like their eye on the prize, and it just completely ruined their friendship. And yeah, so stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, anyone in today's day and age that would literally ban girls from their guild for that reason is like that's a tough look. Like there's almost no way of redeeming that. That's pretty tough, especially because there's a lot of girls who are sick at WoW. It's just kind of hard for them to find guilds that they're comfortable with.
Well, to be fair, is also like I want to give the benefit of the doubt that like gamers are less horny nowadays. At least, of a higher end.
I'll contest that as well.
I mean, like chances are, like we're all old as fuck now, and a lot of gamers who are rating are probably in their late 20s or early 30s, and they've probably had at least some experience.
Yeah, I'm kind of actually I had the same reaction as you, but I think because WoW is not gaining a younger player base really, it's like kind of just has been the same people just getting older. Like naturally over time, people are going to go through that stuff, and like less it's going to. That's your argument, right?
Yeah.
Well, so like how like nowadays it's like guys who are chasing e-girls on Valorant or whatever, but Val's like
Yeah, because they're
back in
kids. They're
our
doing the
days-
exact same thing.
Right? Yeah, they're
literally
doing the exact same thing, except it was
Yeah.
in WoW, and then now they're just playing Valorant instead. Like nobody's really doing that in WoW, are they? Maybe like I don't actually know, but I feel like probably not.
Certainly, it is still occurring in WoW.
Oh yeah.
I
Dratnos
guarantee
knows.
this. Yeah. This is-
Dratnos-
Dratnos
Dratnos
is
deals
good.
with this. Have you dealt with this in your guild?
Oh no, not well. There are people in my
Well,
guild that but not like any guild drama. In fact, I don't think my guild's ever had a intra-guild relationship, like a relationship between 2 people in the guild.
We've had a lot. We've
Yeah.
had like a lot. Like top of my head, like in the past like 3 years, like 4, which is I mean,
4?
yeah, like intra-guild relationships. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it has
That's
never
crazy.
been awful. It's been like pretty fine. Even there was one where there was a breakup in the guild, and then someone else was dating someone else in the guild. It was chill.
That is, I think you're lucky if you proc that without there being like some degree of awkwardness or.
I mean, there might have been, but everyone was professional enough about it to where it
That's
never
good.
affected the guild, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
it's good.
I mean, you guys are professional gamers.
That's
right?
true. You guys are
That is-
literally
that
professionals.
is-
Yeah.
We do this only for a job. We actually don't find this game fun at all. We
That's,
actually we wake up in the
course it's
morning,
not.
put on our suits and ties, and just pro game. That's what we
Well,
do.
it's not the suits and ties; it's the gamer jerseys. Anytime a camera's nearby, you got to do the. Gotta do
Yeah, I
the-
was just about to say that. The gamer pose is crazy. It's crazy how every single esports photo ever, like the only way they can make like a shriveled up little gamer dude look hard is like that like tilted look with the arms like looking at the camera like you're super epic. Has anyone ever looked cooler than that as a gamer?
I think there was some BlizzCon where they had like replica Frostmournes and Doomhammers and stuff for some of those, and they had like a drone flying through a parking garage at the teams. That was pretty sick. But it was usually like I think it was like one of the people had the
remember that at all.
replica, and then the others were doing the esports pose. So
I mean, they got to make esport players cosplay. That way we don't look as cringe.
You know, by the way, speaking of like esports stuff, when was the last time there was like an MDI LAN? Like since COVID, has that been a thing?
No, it was before Nihilotha. It was
So
or
it's been 4 years. It's been like 4 or 5 years since there's been a LAN. Wow.
it would have been BlizzCon 2019, the like summer or fall, like November 2019
Was
the
that when
last
Method
one.
you lost?
No, Method EU lost in Sydney, which was the
Right before
LAN
that, I think.
before that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
thank God
Dorky-
it's not LAN. I don't know
Dorky,
how.
if they
it
had a
would be.
LAN, would you do it?
No.
Why not?
Well, maybe if they can bring my
iPad?
my VTuber thing over.
You just put an iPad in the chair? No way. That would
Why
be
not?
so funny.
Come on, man. It's 2024.
Blizzard would have to be so desperate for competition to allow that. That would be like the worst.
I mean,
Actually,
they like me. They
well, it's not
like
about
me a
them
lot.
not liking you. It's like, dude, that would actually. I'm trying to say that would look bad for broadcast, but I kind of think it'd be fucking hilarious.
That
And
would
might
be
go,
hard as shit.
It might go viral too, to where like it's like this random
Holy
esports
shit! I'd
tournament had
finally
this
be
player-
famous.
Yeah, you'd be famous, and then like WoW esports would blow up because there'd be some crazy TikTok about it or something.
That'd be insane. I hope that happens.
Dude, Dorky, you remember back when like before when you got signed to Golden Guardians in the lead up to that?
Yeah.
I would say 98% of their like trepidation around picking up you in particular was the VTuber no face thing. Like it's crazy how much
Oh, I
companies
remember
want that. Like that was I remember that like 5 meetings. I was fighting for you the whole time, man. I was fighting. I was in there the whole time. I was
Thank
like,
you, Dratnos.
guys
Yeah, I
gotta
knew
get
you-
Dorky.
I
Wait,
knew you
why
had
were you
us.
a part of those meetings? Were you like
So-
were you like a decision maker for
They
them?
picked up me and Tettles first, and then they were like consulting with us about whether to pick up what ended up being Ambition or Incarnation, and they ended up picking up both. But a lot of it was like, you know, I remember a lot of it was like, wow, we really love the vibe of Dorky in particular. He's so cool and funny and handsome, probably, but we don't actually know if he's handsome because he doesn't have a camera. But we're kind of assuming it because we can hear it in the voice,
Yeah,
right?
it's going to be hard to sell things if there's
Yeah,
no face.
exactly,
And
like-
also, they can't guilt trip you into like flying out there to.
I mean, it's
film
2024.
something.
Enough the VTubers are like fucking selling all sorts of shit nowadays.
You're
Yeah.
not
We
a
are, like, basically
VTuber though,
superstars.
right? You're just
Well,
It's the same thing, man.
I mean, yeah, like at the time we had like a glasses sponsor or whatever. You Photoshop the glasses onto the cat, and like you're gonna get
but
I think
that's
more
funny,
than
though.
less.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
people
get
were
it.
thinking it's like, you know,
Yeah,
like that goes hard.
In the gaming, like it's weird because a lot of the VCs and like people who are investing, and then some of the people who got hired at these esports orgs, they want the like ESPN Sports Center desk like super thing, but like, dude, like gamers don't care about that. Like they want their talent to be front and center, but like if you just put the glasses on an ad on Dorky's cat with WoW players and the people that follow Golden Guardians or Dorky or whoever, like that would resonate more than if like
That shit would sell way harder too.
no, I think it would just be more effective. I think that's actually one thing that esports has kind of missed was like it kind of made sense that they wanted to replicate the pro sports model, but there was a lot of things they missed about that. And the first one is like gamers caring about that aesthetic at all or being really even familiar with it at all.
They
Although-
try too hard too. I would say that like they definitely give off that vibe of like, you know, they're just too professional. Even if that's not what gamers are. Gamers are, you know, much more casual.
I think you can see it with the Race World First broadcast as well, right? Like you don't want it to have the news anchor stiffness to it, right? You want like
Right.
knowledgeable, like Seat Story Cup kind of vibes or whatever, where you've got people on a couch that like they know what they're talking about, but it's chill and they're, you know, hanging out and you're having a good time, and it's all like it's like a house party that everybody's at watching something, which I think
Yeah, that's the vibe.
Yeah, I think that
like
vibe
like
is extremely
League should have
valuable.
never gone away from that. Like
Yeah.
League was the like couch in the basement cast, and then they went full Sports Center. But like gamers just simply don't care.
And you can
the
see
other
with
thing,
the restreams or the co-streams having like way more views than the real stream. I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think if we could go back in time, those orgs would stop the co-streaming thing? Because like it's gotten to the point where like initially they didn't allow it because it was hard to convince sponsors that like, yeah, your sponsors are still going to show on their stream, but like that's way different than a caster doing a really good read, right? Totally different. So like, and a lot of the times when those casters do those reads, the streamer like mutes it and talks to their friends. So like, it's definitely getting less value. And now there's like Valorant tournaments where like the main stream will have like 50K or something, and Tarek will just have like 3 times the amount of viewers. So like, it's gotten to the point where clearly it's increased viewership, but like, man, what a like something to let out of the bottle, you know. I wonder if you would go back if they appreciate that, or if they would go back and not allow it.
Yeah, I bet
So,
there's a
I
lot of
know,
like wish to put it back in the bottle. What do you think, Dorky?
yeah, like I know Riot for sure uses esports as a loss leader, and they don't like actually care about any of the profits that come directly from the esports. So they probably don't care about
It's
that.
just to
Like
grow
they
their
only
game.
care about, right, exactly. Like they care about the viewership, and they care a lot about having eyes and having that integrity of being that esports game. And like that's what really led to Riot's success, where uh Blizzard on the other hand kind of failed with like the whole owl situation and HOTS and whatever the fuck else they tried to esportify.
Well, yeah. Also, you have to think of like the whole like esportify, like make it like traditional sports. What's one thing that's true about sports? No matter what sport you're watching, you have to go to the venue, buy a ticket, or you have to buy a cable bundle, or you have to buy a streaming service, or something to watch the game. Like there's a cost associated with that, and these rights to stream these games are billion-dollar deals, right? What is esports? You don't have to buy a ticket to anything. All these people who care about this are at home on their computer, and they've been used to watching it for free for 10 years. So there's all of the money. Like how is that ever going to be profitable, you know? Like at least maybe it'll be profitable, but aiming to go with the sports model when the entire profitability of sports isn't there is like, what are you doing, you know? Super random podcast topic. This is crazy. I wonder how. Let us
That's
know,
crazy.
viewers. How is this interesting to you? Because to me, I imagine a lot of you guys would find us 3 talking about most things and being engaged with it to be pretty interesting. We didn't have a ton of content today. We'll get into some WoW stuff here in probably a minute, but I just want to just quick little shout out. Like, what do you guys think about the just kind of vibe? And we did not plan this at all, by the way. We just started talking.
Yeah,
But
yes.
Yeah,
So
well,
about those alpha dungeons, yeah.
You could tell because I asked Max what you thought about the alpha dungeons, and your answer was there should be a universal gamer time zone.
I mean, it's true.
Yeah, okay. My take, I don't know what the audience consensus is going to be. My take is we should go and do episodes whenever we've got something like this that we actually all want to talk about. We should just do it and figure it out later. Especially if Frank suggested the topics and we ever deviate from those. These ones he didn't. He's asleep. He's slacking. You know,
What
whatever,
is his title gonna be for this episode?
That's my favorite thing. Is like just trying to imagine what he's
I
gonna
mean,
come
like,
up
what
with.
are we gonna talk about? Remove defenses or something? Like, come on, they
Yeah,
love that
good
shit.
They
point,
do
though.
need to do that.
They gotta do something about it.
In
already.
fact, they gave Death Knights a passive
Oh,
10%
dude.
magic damage reduction today, which is fucking insane. You know, all right, dude, easy transition into WoW content. We're fucking pros, man.
The greatest to ever do it.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. The
Oscar,
DK,
by the
dude,
way.
the DK tree. There's some weird stuff in there as well. The AMS your buddies thing as well. Like that one.
Yeah, so someone tested it, and apparently the lesser AMSs that you put on your friends do not like immune things. And
Yeah,
I think
it says it in the
that's
tooltip.
Okay.
yeah, which is that's a big thing. I think that had to be a thing because that would be so unbelievably broken if you could use it as like a magic immunity thing. But even then, think about it. Like, what's the cooldown of AMS? 40, 45, something like that?
It's like 40 these days.
40.
40? Okay,
45.
so think about mass barrier, right? Like, mass barrier is a big absorb on 4 other people every 2 minutes. This little mini AMS thing is you're giving an AMS to 2 people every 40 seconds. Like, that's maybe it's not going to be as big as mass barrier, but I bet it's half as big.
Yeah,
and you're
well,
getting it
so
twice as often.
the numbers on PTR are not alpha at least were tiny as fuck. And
Interesting.
the other major problem with it is it competes with an extremely powerful talent.
node. Yeah.
Like, I don't see
passive
how you
magic
take-
dam.
Yep, 10%, and it's reduced duration on harmful
Well,
magic effects, which is like
I think for Blood DK, you could pretty easily justify not taking a magic DR because you're just so naturally durable against incoming magic damage, anyways,
it
right?
still depends on the situation. I feel like I would never want to
number.
take that. Like
Yeah, I mean,
10% magic DR
it's
passively
big.
for free.
It's nice.
As
I
a DPS,
like it.
that's insane.
That feels
Like,
terrible.
As a DPS, I feel like you can't ever get away from that.
Bro, like,
passive
imagine having to
DR.
simp for your team and you just lose 10% magic DR. Like, hell
But
no,
who
man,
cares,
just
man?
heal.
I'm gonna Death Strike,
You're a
right?
tank, bro.
Magic damage is
Yep.
balanced so that it's not gonna one shot the prot warrior or whatever. Like I'm a blood DK, it's fine. It doesn't hurt
I
me.
mean, depends on the scenario. Like,
in
there's
raid,
definitely
I would
scenarios
think
where you just get
definitely
absolutely
that's
clapped.
true.
Well, I mean,
It-
even on Jailer, like that, when you were tanking Jailer, you were just getting absolutely
On Jailer, if
dropped
you
by
can
that,
if you can live an auto attack from Jailer, you can live the hardest part of the fight. Like that, the magic damage
right.
never
Well,
was
also,
scary.
you're cherry picking maybe one of the hardest hitting tank abilities ever in the game. Is you're
That was the
referring
only
to the
fight I ever
P2?
tanked.
You're referring to the P2
Yeah,
tank
the
debuff, right?
blast.
Yeah.
That I'm pretty sure that is the single hardest hitting tank debuff that's ever existed.
That-
At
that's-
least pre-nerf.
It's the only one where I had to plan out my defensives, and I was using 3.
Yeah, you had to use multiple.
It was
yeah.
3 defensives to live one, 2 powerful defensives to live the next one, 2
Yeah.
powerful and an external to live the next one. It's like, what? Whew,
Yeah, that was insane. But I mean, like, yeah.
that was fun.
So
I love
okay,
that.
you could get a passive, but like as a DPS, oh my god, like any class in the game, you guys are probably listening to this, you probably don't play a DK. Imagine if you had a node that was like you take 10% less magic damage all the time. Like that is fucking nuts. That is nuts.
And most damage you take is magic
Yes.
damage when you're.
Oh,
a
that's what I mean.
DPS.
Yeah, like anything that's trying
It's
to kill
just
you in raid is
10% less
magic.
damage, basically.
Whereas a tank, what's trying to kill you most of the time is often not magic, right? So it's
I
like
mean,
almost
in M
flip.
plus definitely not. In plus, there's definitely a lot of pretty damn lethal magic damage. In fact,
Like
like
tyrannical-
this season, this season in particular, the Dragonflight dungeons are brutal on tanks. Like this might be the hardest tank season of the expansion. Like you go into Azure Vault, the first and the last boss are just doing a one-shot magic tank buster every 20 seconds or so or less, and like 50 seconds back to back on the first boss. So it is like absolutely brutal, and I'm pretty sure Bloody Kid gets one shot through AMS, or maybe not AMS, but like through Vamp Blood for sure.
Yeah, it's,
So things like this is like pretty massive.
I agree. This would be even Blood DK this season in M plus would take the DR, but yeah, in raid almost every tank buster is either pure fizz or it's like half and half fizz and magic, and the fizz.
Well, so that's
part is
another thing too. I
often-
mean,
yeah,
like in raid, it only gives to 2 nearby allies. I mean,
That's true.
How impactful is that really going to be? Like, chances are it's going to be nothing.
That's a good point.
Kind of.
I think in raid you're gonna always take that 10% magic damage. I'm purely speaking as DPS, but like the other one, like I thought mass barrier wasn't that impactful because it's hard to tell. You know, it's not something you like assign and it's like, oh, our whole raid is gonna live because one person pressed mass barrier. It doesn't really work that way. It only hits 5 people. So like, but when I like went back and watched some VODs, there would be times where FIREDUP would press mass barrier and like you could see like 4 ranged around him just get crammed by blazes, and like I bet that but one mass barrier in the raid saved just hundreds of deaths on that fight.
Wait, but how does it work exactly for
It's
mages?
closest.
Is it?
It just goes on the closest
Oh, so it's
people, but
just-
like you're a mage and you're in range. So like in P1, for example, you're like naturally out baiting stuff in all of P1, like those little frontals. So like you're going to be putting it on another range. You're not just throwing it into a pile where it's going to hit tanks and stuff. Like it's generally going to go on like the couple of hunters, the other mage maybe a healer, right? So like those are people where like when a blaze set is going out or like something dangerous, like it's hitting people that definitely could use it most of the time at least. So it was better than I thought. But I think the mini AMS thing, if it's a small number one, if it can't immune things, which seems to be correct, it's just going to kind of go on people randomly. I think it's something that only maybe tanks will take as a support thing, and I think almost all DPS players will take the other one.
Yeah, it just feels like a pretty weird node in my opinion.
I agree with those assessments. Yeah, and there's definitely a downside as well, particularly as a tank. You're going to be next to the other tank more
Right?
often
Yeah,
than
you
not.
just give
and,
like a tiny ass.
Aside
next
from
to
that,
the
you're probably
tank.
going to be next to like the Havoc Demon Hunters or something that are fell rushing around. So you'd be giving AMS to people that don't really need it.
So other things about the DK, forget about the Unholy, because they redid, and I like this, by the way. Shout out to Blizzard. They said this is only their first round of DK changes, so while I'm going to be pretty critical here, just it's good that there are going to be more of them. And the fact that every time we're getting an alpha build, there's like a major rework to like 2 or 3 specs or something, which they're just like cranking out changes right now, which is great. They made AMZ a minute and a half cooldown, kind of significant. Unfortunately, with the class tree, though, they made a couple of great steps forward by baking in stuff, removing 2-point nodes. But then they just kind of, I don't know if you guys played around with that class tree today, but like they made a bunch of 2-pointers in the capstone tree that are all really stinky, and to get less valuable capstones, which like kind of is like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back kind of thing. Like I was playing around with that tree today, and I just felt just as restricted as before, but just in a different way.
Pain.
And a lot of bad pathing issues, and I feel like that tree still needs like heavy revisions because like the monk one just got remade recently too, and they did it exactly right. You have like 26, 27 points of stuff that is like mandatory, and then you just have really cool new stuff to pick. They added cool new DK stuff to pick a little bit, but you don't have the points to actually spend it. You're still locked down, and there's still really bad pathing problems. I don't know if you guys had the same experience.
So I've been hearing this exact take a lot in my chat as well, but I don't really feel the same. Like I understand that the nodes are pretty unimpactful, and you kind of want cool stuff, and you kind of want to have like all the nodes that you should just have baseline kind of. But that doesn't really seem like a problem to me. Because the problems I see in most class trees are the ones where it's like, all right, I have to try getting my interrupt, but in order for me to get my interrupt, I have to like lose out on these other extremely valuable points. Or if I have to get my dispel, I have to drop these valuable points. Or if I have to take a decurse, it's like the worst thing in the world. Like those are the ones I see as extremely problematic because these are like, core utility to classes that always had them, and I hate it so much. I hate whenever I'm in a dungeon and the mage goes, "Oh, I don't have spell steal," even though it's like you can spell steal something absolutely fucking massive here.
That just
Like
means they chose a bad talent build, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Like, I mean, that's the whole point. Like, I actually do like that. I like that the class
well, okay,
trees
so
have...
so I think it's fine if it's like that, if it was like that across all class trees, because the opposite is the monk tree right now, right? Like monk tree currently, why does it own? It's because we can get literally every single node. You can get the poison dispel for free now, interrupt for free. You get like all these like
By the way, when he
stuff,
says
and
for
then
free, what you mean is you don't have to path through things you don't want to get there, right?
yeah, like you
Yeah.
you have to get those points to go further down the tree anyways. So it's practically baseline or free. And that's not the same for the specs that actually have to decide between spell steal or a throughput node or something that actually has value. Kind of like how warriors with shockwave in the past. I mean, I guess like
That was
current,
ridiculous.
yeah, like
That
that,
was rough.
that is bad.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I think the
DK
throughput stuff,
doesn't
like
really have that.
you have to
Well-
you have to take all the throughput, right? Like that. If you've got trees where it's like you're giving up throughput, that's horrendous. But I think the thing that makes the monk tree so special is that you're kind of choosing between like it's not even utility stuff at the bottom really. It's like quality of life. It's like different tweaks to how the spec could operate, right? It's like, do you want that roll, double jump, dash thing? Yes, or do you want some of this
I mean,
other
even
stuff?
that's kind
right?
of baseline though. Like,
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, it is if you want it, right? But like,
you
if you just-
basically get everything on the monk tree.
well,
Yeah, that's what we're saying. That's what makes good trees. You get everything that you absolutely need. Like if you have a node that says you take 4% less damage, let's not kid ourselves. You 100% need that. Every class in the game, spec, every class, you would need that. You do 2% more damage as a node in the class tree. Need
Well,
that.
it's not exactly those nodes. It's more about like, all right, you have to drop para to get double roll.
Dropping
That'd be
para
like a
is
more
fine. There are multiple raid fights where you could never use para, and it is great that you have the opportunity to get something in place of that. And the monk tree is filled with nodes that you could get that are cool and would impact your...
No, but that's the exact thing though. Like monk tree doesn't have that problem or dilemma. You literally just have it all. Like you can have para, you can have interrupt, you can have decurse, dispel, whatever. You can have transcendence, ring of peace, and you don't actually lose any of these at all. You're just trading like super minor things. Like
Correct, but if
you
you do
roll
lose
smaller.
them, you get good things. But let me give you some examples from the DK one, since we're talking about DK. DK,
Yeah.
in a fight where you don't need kick, plenty of raid fights, you have to pick kick and the extra node after kick just to get IBF at all. Lunacy. That's crazy. At the bottom of the tree, the choice node in the capstone level now that gives you the big 10% passive DR we were just talking about. You have to take 2 points, and each one of them makes you receive 15% more healing when your anti-magic shell is up. That's horrible, right?
Yeah.
You would want that without the other. If you want A-Bomb's Limb, if you guys have ever played DK, even though now it's a little bit less powerful offensively, super crazy button, need that one, right? Most of the time. You have to get 2 points in something where when you pull an enemy, they deal damage. The damage they deal to you is reduced by 4%. Okay, if you're pulling a mob, they're not going to kill you. It's not a boss. It's not a mob that has an uninterruptible cast because you just grip the cast from happening in the first place. You have to spend 2 points. It turns A-Bomb Limb into a 3-point talent. It turns Vestigial Shell into a 3-point talent where you're getting absolutely nothing of value with the other two, right? They're just tremendously bad pathing errors in throughout the entire tree. And that yeah, you're talking about, some trees have this other thing, but that's real. Like Death Knights, there isn't the whole getting it for free is fine, but there also needs to be when you don't need said thing, mostly CC utility related interrupt, you actually have value. But DK doesn't even have the option to not get those things. So you're just locked down permanently. You have no choice.
Well, no, I mean, I think we're agreeing on the same thing. I'm just saying that it needs to be standard across all specs, or not even all specs, all classes in this case, because they're fighting for different problems, and I feel like the problem that DK is fighting for is not as great of a problem as many other specs. Because I don't know, when I play DK, whenever I'm looking at my class tree, I don't see a problem because I don't feel like, oh man, fuck, I don't have XYZ, whatever it may be, Asphyxiate or AMZ. I'm just gonna have them anyways. It's not like I really lost anything in my tree per se, which makes it kind of boring. But
I think this might be a tank thing. I'm looking at this from a DPS. That is
no. That definitely has a DK DPS too. Because obviously I've been playing DK DPS way more than tank, and I feel the exact same.
Pathing through blood draw, 2 points into blood draw to get to things that's. I mean,
but you don't need blood draw. I don't. When I'm making my tree, I don't feel like I'm actually losing anything in this tree.
Okay, I can go back and look at the old one, but even just decisions like that never happen in other ones, and I don't think it's an excuse that a lot of the times you end up with a lot of the things you have when you have to path through a lot of things you don't want to get to those things, and that's just okay. That just means that those points aren't interesting or valuable at all.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom of the new DK tree, those 2-pointers, but right above each of the capstones are pretty offensive, right? It just never feels
they're
good
dog
to put
shit.
2 points
they,
into
they are.
Yeah,
doing grass
spend,
prognosis.
The AMS one. What is the point of this?
Yeah,
they spent a lot of work doing some things that are good, moving Unholy Bond up, moving Soul Reaper up, moving Icy Talons up, and making all of them instead of 2-point nodes 1 point. Okay, you're gaining 5 points. Okay, and then you throw all of those extra points away into awful meaningless points just to get capstones. So if they can fix that, and by fix that I mean all 3 of those need to be removed. They're horrible buttons. And replaced with something else, and just less 2-point nodes in general. That's one thing the monk thing has. Across Monk's class and spec tree for Windwalker, there is 2 nodes with 2-pointers. It's kind of just becoming an objective thing where that is a better situation. You just have more choice. It's simply 2 1-point nodes is just more interesting than 1 2-point node by default. So just apply that across the whole board. It's going to be a lot better. So they need to do that.
Well, I guess the better question I have is what type of choices do you want in a class tree?
I think
because the monk example is real quick. I don't think the monk tree literally changes anything for the most part. It seems
I think
you
the monk
just
tree is
play
pretty
the same
sick though,
thing.
right?
I totally disagree.
Okay, monk, you're when you're choosing your last 4 points, you're choosing between lighter than air, the roll double jump thing, transcendence instantly heals you for 15% of your max health. You and your allies have a increased movement speed, right? Those are the kind of thing. Whether you want,
but I think you can already have all those. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, you can, right?
those.
Those can be your last 4 points, or you could get detox, right?
You could get more reduction.
No, but you
on
also have that too.
paralysis.
You can get para having enrage effects be removed. I mean, you can have any of those things, and it doesn't hurt too bad because you're not giving up anything.
Well,
sick,
no.
right?
You could
What I
replace
mean right
those-
now is
you could replace those 4 things with 4 other things that are cool.
Yeah, and it's all just so you have basically 4 or 5 points to split between 10 things that are all cool or marginal, like, para removing enrage effects is something that you're going to want in some cases, but at that point, if you ever have to take that, you're dropping one of those things I just mentioned, and it's, you're picking the one that you want the least, and it's fine, right? It feels fine. Whereas for, DK or whatever, your 30th, your 31st point are being spent on, finishing, getting those capstones or whatever that you need because they're costing you 3 points each, right? And like that feels a lot less flexible and fun.
The para de-enrage thing, I would agree with, but like, I'm gonna have to look at this tree again. But I swear I remember looking at this tree and I got every single thing I've wanted, and I would never change off of that tree.
Maybe that's a
which is
Brewmaster
like
thing.
sort of the point.
That's not true for Windwalker.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would have to look at it again because like, I just remember the other nodes being completely useless or like not very interesting. Like the one where you roll half of the distance, or I guess you could get Clash.
Yeah, the
I don't know. It
Clash
just
is-
seems like I kind of would just stick with the same thing. Like I would get light as air or whatever. I would get Transcendence and I would
Hello,
get
Chi.
Transcendence heal, and I just have everything that I need. Like I just feel like I would never change my tree, but I would have to look at this again, and maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there's some earlier incarnations of class trees that kind of got this right. Like Shaman was kind of the OG. I think Shaman is now the longest standing without having being changed tree that accomplishes the, at least for enhanced. I don't want to speak for some of the other specs, but like you get everything you want, and then like you have a couple nodes to like toss around for like poison cleansing totem and like just some stuff you need that are very situational, and then you can go and grab extra stuff based on what you have. I think this tree is like kind of a little problematic. It's just because it's years old now, but they got that right initially. There's some that are really bad, but like even like Paladin, there's like a lot of the newer ones have that. Evoker has that. The Druid, they like actually two of the new ones they made, Druid and DK, I both feel like didn't do it really well at all. But Druid, I wonder if Druid might just be cooked because there is 4 specs and no other spec has to do that. And
Yeah, they actually talked about it in the dev notes with
Today?
Druid Tree. No. Like when they first reworked it, I think they said something along the lines of like they wanted each spec to have their own tree or something. I don't remember what they said exactly. I'm just kind of paraphrasing.
you can see it on the tree, like it's straight up. And Frank will put this on the stream
It's
right
bad.
now.
Yeah.
But he loves that, and you will like the left side is clearly a feral column, and then there's a guardian column, and then there's a resto column and a moonkin column. But because of that, there are, again, you talk about points that are required, and let's not kid ourselves, those points are required. So like for example, if you are a resto or a moonkin player and you want a 4% DR, which you 100% need, you have to get Iron Fur or 2 points in physical damage and armor increase. And it's just like and maybe even frenzied regen just to get Iron Fur. So like you're throwing away either 2 or 3 points. 3 or 4 points to get Thick Hide, which is crazy. If you want 10% more reduced damage on Barkskin, Moonkin's Turbo want that, right? You would have to spend 2 points in Dread, Rake, and Mangle damage. Like that feels horrible. If you want Fluid Form as a Feral or Guardian Druid for like that really cool massive attack build, right? You have to get points in the Moonfire and Sunfire node, even if you don't spec anything into that at all. And it all makes sense from like a thematic point of view, from like a column, but it has a gameplay, like just some of the pathing and routing is as if they made this 2 years ago and didn't learn anything in between that time. Tough.
Yeah, it's tough as well because conceptually, for a tree to be like to have the most impactful decisions, you would need to be like choosing between things you really want and not able to get everything you really want, right? But in practice,
Right,
the monk
yeah.
thing feels much better, which I think is Dorky's point, right? Where in the monk thing, it's like you're choosing between your last points are between like, oh, one thing that's kind of nice but I don't really care about, or a different thing that's kind of nice that I don't really care about, and everything that I really feel like I want, I can get every time, right? And like that's the weird tension with these talent trees is the more you actually make it so that there's 33 things you really want and 31 points to spend on them, the more players are going to complain about that, because every time they're making a build, they're going to be aware of those 2 points they weren't able to spend on things they actually want. And they're going to be aware of that spot where they don't have spell steal, even though they're going into a dungeon that has like a good pull for spell steal. I think the answer is just do the monk thing for every tree. Like, make a bunch of kind of
same
weird little niche things that you might want sometimes, or that are maybe cool sometimes, and let people pick some but not all of those, and make sure that they get everything that they ever would feel bad if they were missing out on. But I think you can make a strong argument that, like, from a perspective of making a game with tough, interesting choices, you are making less tough, interesting choices that way.
Would you say the same for the spec trees, or is this
absolutely
like a
not?
class tree
No,
specific?
totally separate.
Yeah.
Spec
Okay,
trees
it
would be insane if spec trees were like, you just get everything you want. That doesn't make sense. Spec trees are all about throughput. There is clearly a large amount of friction between throughput nodes in the class trees for sure.
That's something we're gonna have to talk about later on Holy Tree. Like, it is bad. But I mean, like, part of the reason why like I brought up this whole argument is because whenever I look at spec trees, specifically on Vengeance, and in fact, I've been thinking about this for like the entire day, because I've been like thinking about like maybe making a video on like talking about the different Vengeance Demon Hunter talent trees, because it's like been such a hot topic. Demon Hunter has so many different impactful choices you can make. There's like, in fact, probably 5+ different builds. Everyone has their own build, and like obviously there's like Demon Hunter class Discord build, there's like my build, there's the Yoda build, there's the Naupog build, there's like the Coward build, there's the China build, and there's like all these different builds, right?
Wait. What is the China build?
The China build is just playing cheat death, and
wouldn't that be the Coward? Like, wait, how does the Coward build differ from that?
The Coward build is like when you just like take off all of like the damage dealing nodes, but like all these different builds, none of them are particularly bad. Now, like obviously the DH Discord will tell you otherwise. They'll tell you that like every other build is inferior aside from ours, but
ignore class Discords at all times. Continue.
In fact, we tell you not to take Sigil of Shades. It's bad. Okay, anyways, that's a tangent. So, because it doesn't increase your damage, obviously.
Dude,
but,
that's one of the things. Whenever people talk about like Vengeance Demon Hunter being OP and like only accepting Vengeance Demon Hunter since they're pugs, I'm just thinking like you're queuing into your +5, and your Vengeance Demon Hunter is not going to press their utility sigils anyways. They're coming out of the Fellhammer Discord, like they're ready to blast, and they're doing the exact same utility stuff that a Guardian Druid would be doing, which is nothing, right? Like, just pick whatever tank applies first.
Dude, come on, it's not that bad.
I mean,
no, but like, it's actually the tree like owns extremely hard in the sense that like there are so many different things you can take on the tree. Like, one would excel on like single target tankiness, one would excel in like AoE, one would excel in damage, one would excel in like utility. There are so many different choices that I thought about making a video to like analyze it all.
That sounds like a really interesting video. I would watch that like on stream. I think that sounds really interesting. But like, if you look at these, I'm looking at the tree now. So maybe this is something that you could look at other trees for, and it would be an interesting way to analyze it. And it'd be really hard to do this objectively, because just like you said, like everyone looks at this differently. But it would be a nice exercise, and it's take your time and try to give some kind of numeric value of how powerful you feel like each talent is in some situation. And by doing that, you'll be able to like kind of look at the entire thing and see where choices are. So you pick the things that are like the highest value. Okay, that's natural. It's always going to happen. But like on the trees that have, like, let's just say an entire, is it row? Yeah, an entire row of talents. Pretty much anywhere in the tree outside of the very top, they should be roughly the same power level, right? It's like kind of the same decision when you get to that point to get there. And the trees that have more closely balanced, maybe niche situations, but closely balanced in like potential power level things, and it sounds like the Vengeance DH tree is kind of like that, you're going to find classes that actually feel like they can play that many things. But also what you said might be tank related, because a lot of the stuff you're talking about is utility and like Sigil of Chains. Like, bro, if a DPS had
defensive
Sigil
value
of Chains,
too, yeah,
and defensive value, exactly, where like that's kind of, tanking has never really been able to been solved by math. Like it's just been hilarious to see. Like, I remember back in like BFA, there would be tanks that would like statistically argue that parry is, or like crit is the best defensive stat, because like if you parry over 100 attacks, like it's the most DR. But like back then if you didn't get parried twice in a row,
And then
you
you
just
get melee
fucking
twice in a row.
die.
Yep.
You just die, right? So it's like totally
Just fucking die.
It's like totally not practical, right? And there's just so tanking is a very feely crafty kind of thing, and it's really cool in that way. But like DPS is way more numerically figured out. So I think it's way less likely that DPS could have this, but I think that it would be an interesting exercise nonetheless to just see, and it would maybe even help Blizzard, honestly, if you could find someone objective enough to actually rate these things like this and just have like maybe another point of information to be like, well, actually, maybe this row isn't really that interesting because these two talents are way better than these two, so no one actually wants to go down that side of the tree. I mean, if they were to actually solve that, it would make pretty much every tree more interesting.
I do think it is pretty unique to tanks, though, like being able to actually have these choices between offense and defense, right? Like, I think Vengeance in particular has the best of this as well, where you could just chef up a build anytime you want and it's feeling good. But like, I think you try and do that on a DPS, on a pure DPS spec, you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot way more often. I mean, you're gonna do it as a tank as well, but it's the kind of thing where it's like that's kind of the game of tanking, right? Is like trading off between offense and defense and utility.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely things they could do with DPS, but it is like much harder to solve. Like, the difference between having like a more sustained type of damage versus like maybe like more of like a bursty type of damage build, or like just different play styles too. Those are pretty significant ways of altering the tree. But yeah, I mean, I agree for the class tree, they should absolutely make it more about how your abilities might function. Like, maybe if they made grip a choice node between like you can like grip the target or you can grip to the target, maybe something like that would be like a cool little flavor thing instead of something that has numerical value to it. It's definitely they definitely need more of that type of stuff in the class tree itself.
Yeah, I think choice nodes are a great way to do it for sure. All right, we've got some other stuff that we will talk about, I assume, in future episodes, though, as we are getting now approaching the 2 a.m. marker. So I think that's going to be
Jesus. Yeah, I need to go to bed, man.
That's going to be it's going to be. I think it's bedtime soon. But
5 a.m.
Out of our undying love for you, the listeners in general, and you, the patrons in particular, we will answer now a Patreon question before going, which comes from Reshik that says, I think there's value in boss intermission to let players mix things up for a bit, have a moment to chat mid-pull, etc. However, while some can be full, others can be quite mind-numbing or frustrating. One that I liked recently was Tindral, because the guild could have some quick laughs flying and the mechanics weren't terribly challenging. However, I also remember Fatescribe and the rings. Nothing was more soul-crushing than watching the spinning for 10 more seconds when you already knew it was going to fail. I'm curious how difficult you think an intermission should be. What makes for good boss intermission? Do you have any favorites that come to mind?
Okay, so it's not even... I think what they're talking about is like in a longer... It doesn't have to be an intermission. And I'll give an example of that with Razageth.
There's the speed run, by the way. There's a speed run in every episode, which is how long it takes you to mention Razageth, and we nearly made it a whole episode here without it.
Yeah. Oh, the only thing I was going to bring up is like it's not actually an intermission in Razageth, but do you know when you finish the second one and you just get knocked to the last platform?
Yeah,
like that.
Yep.
You just like do the little. That's enough time. 10 minutes into a really hard boss to like sit down, kind of just like stretch a little bit, crack your knuckles, maybe stretch your back out, and then like you can and then you just put your hands back on your keyboard, and then it's like time to go. Like that's not an intermission per se. Some of the intermissions he mentioned cause that, but I do think it is nice to have like a little reset point before you go into like the last phase after a really long, hard boss before that point.
Wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, I think your point about like mini intermissions or whatever, like the Razageth knockback, Sire between phase 1 and phase 2 when you're falling down, between phase 2 and phase 3 when you're like running through the mirror or running to the mids to get ready for phase 3, like that one's a little bit less because you're kind of still doing damage and stuff doing your rotation while you're doing it. But I actually think those are extremely valuable to have like little bits of, I don't like the ones where they stun you, but I like the other one. So I don't like the Jaina one where she's like, "Gotcha in open water now. That was my plan all along." That you're watching a cutscene. I'm not a fan of that one as much because I don't or the Sylvanas, going into a cutscene after P1 before the first intermission. But yeah, the Raz Nox, I think, really do a good job of that. In terms of traditional intermission, I think Razageth is the biggest offender of like, what are we doing here? Razageth, second intermission, boring, 10 minutes into a 14-minute fight. Absolutely, what are we doing here? The first intermission had huge tuning and difficulty problems relative to the rest of the fight. So I think the actual intermissions on that fight kind of sucked, but the knockback little bits were cool. I agree with the commenter here that Tindral was great. Tindral, flying on Tindral.
Yeah, the
was
dragon
so
riding was easy enough to kind of just like, mess around in between pulls. I'm sure every guild had like that one person who was just like couldn't dragon ride well, or like or just had like a really bad clip of them trying to, like, what happened in a lot of guilds is like someone would do like the endless circles around the flare they were supposed to soak, right? I've seen a bunch of those, or like someone accidentally didn't make it to the platform because they super goofed, and like you'll never let them forget about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the biggest offender for me is actually Council of Blood. The biggest reason why I hate that fight is the whole. Now I get it, people love the whole like sachet left, blah blah blah, but like, God, having to do that shit like how many times? Like 3 times, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do it like 3 times, and it was like a 9-minute fight or something, maybe even longer. I can't remember, but like having to do that over and over was it was bad. I hated
enjoyed
that
it.
fight specifically for that. Like, yeah, I see why people like it, because like it's very memorable. But when you're progging that fight and you're having to like constantly do that shit, it made the fight drag for so much longer than it should have been.
I remember a clip
And
of FIREDUP just predicting the 5-step or the 6 steps before each one
I
came
remember
out.
that too. Yeah.
Yeah, if you ever saw a clip of him doing that, right, I need you to know that there were maybe hundreds, definitely. I mean, he did this every single pull, hundreds of times where he was wrong. I think I do remember the time he actually did get them all right. He was super hyped.
Yeah.
I thought it was Shaq that got it right, but that actually.
Oh, it's
Could
definitely
be.
fired up.
Yeah.
FIREDUP would scream it every time. Also, random Council of Blood fact: we had a hunter, Padra, who did Council of Blood with us. He's pretty famous for actually falling off things in fight. So I don't know if you guys have ever noticed that. Like, if there's ever like a hole you can fall in, it's just like he cannot do that right. Anyways, he did not realize until we killed the Council of Blood, which I think was pretty fast. I mean, we killed that boss in like not a lot of time at all, but he did not know there were squares on the ground for the dance. Like, he did not know there were tiles there. He was like,
Oh, I know.
finding his spot and then just like YOLOing the movement from where the NPCs were going. And I just found that
I was
to
doing the
be
exact same
insane.
thing.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I did.
Like,
the
you
exact
didn't
same-
realize it was based on the tiles?
No, until like a bit after.
Oh, let's go.
I did not realize it was like sometimes I would fail it, and I'm like, why did I fail it? I'm literally doing what the NPCs are doing. Did I just do it too slow or fast? And at some point it clicked. I'm like, oh, okay, it's the freaking tiles.
Yeah, it never clicked for him. We found this out 5 months into farm. The entire time he had just been just
good.
YOLOing it. But you mentioned Council of Blood. That's one where I think pretty high approval rating. Like especially like the casual community just absolutely loved the dance thing. But what's like some example? I mean, the only time there's bad intermissions is like when there's intermissions on fights that should never even be there in the first place. You mentioned Razageth, just simply the fight's better. Also, Iraq, the first intermission, and I don't think this was intentional. Maybe it was intentional. That just like made it like the hardest part of the fight.
Gateway.
I mean, just like the first
soaking
intermission,
the fire and shadow orbs.
it was
Yeah.
just super fucking hard. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you needed like a
Yeah,
weak
that was
aura to
brutal.
like hard solo it for you. And then even with the weak aura, like it was really challenging. Like the blazes were super dangerous. Like it was really lethal damage wise. I think there's like 2 less blazes now than there used to be in that phase or something. Like that was just like randomly the hardest part of the phase. There's so many we've
I'm
already
pretty
talked
sure after the race to world first, that was the hardest part
100%.
of progression.
Until
intermission
they
right
made
there.
it not a private aura, I think most guilds lost like much more wipes to that phase than any other. Yeah.
I mean, even on Reclair this week, we were having wipes to it because, like, we just couldn't figure out like what was going on. Like, how did balls get in?
Yeah, it's just a mystery.
But yeah, my favorite intermission was actually Argus. I thought it was like so cool when
Which
he just like
intermission?
sucks you all in and just like kills everyone, end it all, and then he turns red. Like I thought that was so cool, and Even though like how long was it? It was like a while, but I thought it was like one of the coolest intermissions ever.
Kind of
It
similar
was
to
super
that.
flavorful.
Weren't like Sarkareth, they were kind of intermissions, you know, like when you just decided to go. I mean, in the first from P1 to P2, you literally the fight makes you do it, but like you do it in P2 to P3. That
All
kind of
going
accomplishes
down.
the same thing. You all like
It was lame though.
It was
It was
so
nowhere
cool
near as good.
thematically.
Isn't it
Like,
the exact same thing? You like, well, I mean, you mean besides you're talking epic lore factor, like you
I mean,
fucking
like
die.
Argus literally kills you all, and you
Yeah,
know
I mean,
you're like, what just happened? And then like, you
imagine
know
Starkreth
you have to.
killed you and you're in the spirit realm. It's like if you just forget the fact that you're not dead, it's the exact same thing.
No, but your characters like are literally dead, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Argus.
yeah, if
Come
you
on.
forget that and you just imagine going into that little spirit realm or whatever means that you were dead,
Nah,
that's what I'm saying. You're tied to the lore. You're like all lored up right now.
It's nowhere,
You're
it's nowhere
feeling
near
the
as cool.
you're feeling the lore. I respect
dude,
that.
Nowhere near as cool.
I like the lore of the Sarkareth. The Sarkareth one is you're slipping into the emptiness between the stars. Like that is such a cool thing in the
I actually
tooltip.
didn't even know that.
But you don't even know that because what happens is you shift into a slightly different version of the exact same disc with no stuff on it that is the Sarkareth boss platform. So that's one of the ones where like the lore doesn't live up to the implementation IMO, but it was still cool. I thought the Sarkareths were cool. I want to shout out Star Augur as well, like just the parts where the walls go out and you're zooming out and you can see the like planetarium. It's not a break in the
that was
action,
cool.
but it was such a cool moment. And then like as it shifts from cold to fell to void over the course of the fight, and you're just watching like the planets in the background change and the walls come in and
Oh
out
yeah, that
and
was
stuff.
sick.
Incredible. Gul'dan as well. Nighthold was something else. but
Nighthold was
Gul'dan,
just one of the
yeah.
best raids ever. Yeah, yeah. I wonder if they have. So like, how did you feel about like Echo of Neltharian's intermissions? Because like, it's like the whole walls breaking and then the walls coming back, but that was happening like there was no real break. You were just fighting the boss the whole time. I wonder if the boss like that using this person's point could have benefited actually from like a, or maybe like the big broad thing to ask is, I don't know, just like, is it nice to have like that little 10 seconds to breathe before a P3 starts on really, really hard fights, just as kind of like a design goal, you know, like that knock to the platform on Razagath or something, where just imagine in P3 Echo of Neltharian, when you get him to phase into P3, he just like jumps up for 10 seconds and then comes back later. Like, I don't know, like it's just kind of,
Firac literally does that, right? Before P3, like up,
yeah,
down.
it is
It's
kind
great.
of a vibe to just like take a deep breath, reset, and get ready for the thing. I don't know if that ever takes value away from a fight, you know?
Yeah, I think it just depends on how often it happens and like how much you have to actually interact with it. Like,
Also,
if you
shout
have
out
to be like constantly doing things.
shout out mechanically easy but kind of throughputty intermissions, right? Like N'Zoth, where you get to just blast him between in P1 for a couple, for like 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and before you go back to the second Psychus phase or whatever. The Psychus phases sucked, but the little bit where you could blast him was cool. Rashok goes into the middle, you blast him for a while. Obviously, you're like dodging and healing, but like, so those aren't really intermissions in the same way, but I do think good usage
They
of
kinda
those
are.
kind of burn phases or
Oh, what about Painsmith dodging the balls?
Oh no, that's
That
an
was fun.
example where like they made a certain part of the fight like they made the intermissions like almost the goal. Like the intermissions were the progression point for that, but in a very unique way. I think Painsmith is like a pretty high approval rating. I will say one thing that was weird about that is that it was intended from the beginning of progression that you can gateway through all of the damage on that fight, both of the balls and all of the spikes, which is why the intermission thing worked. And that was just like never communicated.
Yeah, that
Like-
felt unintuitive. Like when I
Yeah,
first saw it, I'm
it
like,
was
how
on
is this supposed
purpose.
to work?
Exactly. Like I remember we found it out and we thought we were like bugging the game out and they were gonna fix it, and they were like, no, this was actually designed so Gateway would just immune everything. And we're like,
I don't believe it.
I
They
mean-
made that up. They probably just
Yeah,
like,
I
oh
mean,
wait,
maybe.
wait, okay, yeah, that's intended.
well, I mean,
They-
you could
they
argue
for
that
sure
they
did that.
didn't make it up because it wasn't the second intermission on Painsmith, and Frank will have a video of this just playing right now. But isn't there a line that you can't get through?
There's one on both intermissions. They removed it after the first month, but yeah, there's like the fifth of 10 spikes was a unbroken line. in
And there
both
was
intermissions.
that was the Covenant expansion, so like there was ways to play around that, like you could Night Fae it, or you could Door of Shadows it, or you could just
You could fleshcraft it
unit.
as well with the one soulbind that let you fleshcraft, not get stunned while you were fleshcrafting. Yeah.
yeah. So like there was ways to get around it, but Like it was their design goal, I think, the whole time was the way to deal with that wave was to use gateway, and it lined up every time.
Yeah, I thought their idea was to like have like a mini DPS wall where like you gotta try doing the intermission and doing damage and make your way through kind of situation.
Can we talk about? They mentioned Fatescribe in this question. Can we talk about how much of a hated boss Fatescribe
I
would
hate
have
that
been
fight so much.
if they made it so you couldn't just like run one direction, you actually had to like have a second person help you, but you had to identify whether you needed to go right or left instantly, but also you couldn't cross the lines that went to the middle. That would have been like the most required weak aura thing, which people hate, and it would have been unbelievably hard. And I think people would have despised that fight.
I wonder if you would have just gone with like a RNG strat where you just kind of like you're just like, look, if these two ones need to go left, we wipe, and we just keep pulling until the two far ones need to go right.
I think most guilds would do something like that.
I remember on Lihivum we had a strat for a while that we mathematically calculated to be 1 in 16 to wipe us if we just kind of had certain people go to certain sides. And then we were wiping a lot too, and we realized we did our math wrong, and it was like 1 in 3.
Yeah.
So that was not
Famous.
good.
Yeah.
But it was a good idea, I guess. Otherwise,
Hey, when were you guys doing your own Lihivum thing?
well, we didn't have a weak aura when we started it because we got there like early enough to not have good.
Oh, you're talking
Yeah.
about the stacking with the
stacky
resonance
wackies,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we did the exact same thing. We
Yeah.
did the exact same thing. Like we had a working weak aura at some point, and then we just like kind of ignored it for a while, and we're just like, I don't know, guys, just like go to your spots and like someone just scream if everyone in your group has the same thing, and one person will change, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, we were doing it without the someone scream thing, and then we kind of figured out, okay, we need to actually add that
Someone
because
needs
it's
to
not
scream.
1 in 16.
Add the
yeah.
scream.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Anyways, that was a great question. I think that sort of question, patrons, is a really good one. One that's just going to proc us talking about random old bosses. So throw those at us
Good point.
whenever you
Goddamn
want.
Raiders.
Yeah, or do some dungeon ones as well. Me and Dorky can talk about dungeon stories and.
I don't think intermissions and dungeon bosses would go over very well, right?
You
'Cause
guys don't
usually
like
they're
the
Hold on,
Halls of
hold on, let's
Infusion
think
last
about it real
boss?
quick. I'm trying to think.
Halls of Infusion last
Actually,
boss. Walking.
Great intermission, yeah.
Yeah. It's
We
just
like
a shame
the
that we only
more
get one of
some
them
good
now.
intermission ones.
Yeah.
I think you know what's a good intermission? Gambit last boss.
I was just thinking that as well.
Yeah, the connecting
That
stars
boss
or whatever.
was
That's
so
kind
good.
of cool.
Yeah.
Honestly, that entire instance was just
Yeah, even the
fucking
first boss intermission
awesome.
was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Odin. Oh, absolutely, yeah. Dude, God, what a good dungeon, man. What a good dungeon. Shout
Dude,
out that.
Streets as well. Streets was good
What a
too.
dungeon.
Streets and Gambit were both.
I didn't
so
like
good.
Streets as much,
Yeah, well,
but it was okay.
I think Gambit is like it's really hard to tell because like season 3 and season 4 Shadowlands were like the most I've Mythic Plus in a very long time, and they both happen to have Gambit in it. But I think Gambit is like top 3, maybe top 2, top 1 Mythic Plus dungeon. I would zone in that dungeon any time of day. I fucking love it.
It was very well designed. I mean, I kind of wish they would just do more of that. We've done it right once.
What, design good dungeons?
that's a good point.
just like
yeah.
take.
I think they should also
just,
do
like,
good class
take the ideas
balance as well.
Well,
Dude,
okay,
same.
but I mean, it's like how like all right, people liked encrypted. How about let's try doing something that takes all the good ideas from there. Like, people like Gambit. Maybe let's try doing something that.
Dude, I'm fully on that boat. Forget innovation. Just take the like 3 really, really good seasonal affixes and the 4th like kind of good one, and then just do fortified, tyrannical, swaps every week, and then just every week is a new seasonal affix that you absolutely have already put in this game and you know they work. And
Yeah, like
I
they know it works, right? Like surely they can do something.
you could put
similar.
Awakened in every dungeon right now and it would slap. You could put Encrypted in every dungeon, it would slap. There's Shrouded, Shrouded or whatever it's called, slaps, right? Like it would just be good. And the only purpose of affixes, wow, I can't believe we procced an affix talk right now, but
Wow, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, wow, how did this happen? But like, because you guys have all heard this take before, but like the only reason for affixes is for variance. That is variance. Every week is different, and it's not bad. It's enjoyable. It's a different kind of good. I don't know.
Yeah, man, you're just thinking about how you can do it differently. How can you make use of this week?
The only problem with this take is like, whenever you do seasonal affixes, it's like they're gonna obviously keep creating new ones. Like that's the whole point. But like, it's just like the hit rate is just so So
It's
50-50.
4 and 9 is the hit rate in my opinion so far. Yeah,
I mean, I just
What do you
don't
mean?
see how how does that happen?
4 out of 9?
yeah, they hit 4
So it's
good
like
ones.
just below 50%.
Yeah, just a bit below 50%.
Okay, but the better ones came later. That's for sure.
Yeah, the better
Wait,
one.
is it
There was
true?
a bias towards the
Probably.
better ones being later. Yeah,
Is that true?
yeah, a little
I
bit.
think so. I actually haven't really thought about
Or the
that.
last 3, Thundering,
Shrouded,
Enshrouded,
Encrypted.
Encrypted. So 2 out of 3, and then
But then it was Prideful Tormented, but then it was Awakened.
And
But
even
Reaping
Thundering
and
wasn't, like,
Infested
the
were both
worst
at the
thing ever.
start.
I mean,
Thundering,
there's
think, was one of the less
definitely
bad, but it's pretty bad.
Dude, I think Reaping is the most overrated affix ever.
I think Reaping was sick. Reaping was like
It was sick. Yep.
Reaping was like I think Reaping would go really well in a rotation as well because I feel like Reaping is like a dessert. Like it's you just are
I
blasting
can
an
get behind
AoE
this.
so like I feel like when Reaping week came around, you would log in and you would do a lot of keys because it would be the lowest coggy load affix ever, right? It's just like,
And
hey,
it would
this
just
is
be fun.
this is the week where you're specking your AoE stuff, and I'm sorry we're not inviting you specs that are target cap to 5. Like it's tough. It's tough out there. They should fix that. That's a separate problem. But like the rest of us, we're gonna go and have fun in our little playground where we can AoE. It's gonna be a blast.
Oh man, Unholy DK with bursting
Oh.
wounds in that season
Oh.
was incredibly fun. Especially
I miss
current
Unholy
Unholy would
DK.
be so good at that. Could you imagine current Unholy 45-second Vile Contagion bursting wounds build? You'd pop. Forget about all the other issues in the spec tree, but that specifically would be.
But again, I was about to say, man, like Vile Contagion, yo, you'd be fucking blessed to be able to have that.
Yeah.
All
All
right,
right, that's it. That
Yep.
seems like a nice little podcast we did.
No more. That's it. That's the end. We're cutting ourselves off. No more affixes and dungeons and stuff till next week.
I procced an affix thing out of nowhere. That's wild. Like after the
That's
Patreon
crazy.
question too. Dude, my dogs know this is ending. By the way, they are fully ready.
That's good.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I might be able to get Reptar to say goodbye to the podcast with a little aroo. Reptar, aroo. Did you hear that?
No.
No, my mic didn't cue. No,
Oh,
he
dude.
pop. Wait, let me try again. Fran can edit this. Let me change it to no voice activity, just like push talk. I'm just gonna press. All right, let me see if I can do it again. Reptar, aroo.
We still can't hear it. You've
can't
got a
hear
noise
shit.
gate or something that's too good. Yeah.
Reptar,
Or compression.
No, that's
Yeah,
so
you
sad.
got some type of
He
noise
is.
suppression.
He's literally doing this.
Oh, we can hear it a little bit there in the background.
You
A tiny
fucking
bit.
popped off.
Yeah,
all right,
Frank will
never
edit
mind.
in some good dog noises.
We're gonna edit out all of that. 'Cause it just-
we don't know
I
all
fe-
that,
I
yeah.
fear you don't know
you better
Frank very
put
well.
up with that shit, dude.
No, it's all gonna be in. It's if we're lucky, he's not gonna use it as the intro to the podcast like he usually does with the most
That would be
embarrassing
tough.
bits. All right. I think it's bedtime.